Now, a 30-year-old democracy, yet some citizens remain without basics such as water and electricity. According to a survey conducted by Afrobarometer, most South Africans want Eskom's energy monopoly to end by privatising the embattled power utility. And while the electricity minister has hinted at privatisation, it is no secret that the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and trade unions are vehemently against the idea. As we head to the national election, manifestos sporadically mention energy, as it remains a hot political potato. Independent economic and energy analyst Tshepo Kgadima joins us with his take. Tshepo, always a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Well, greetings to you and to the viewers of Business Day TV.
Perhaps what might be useful at this point, Tshepo, is to track the energy, the grid, the energy state that was inherited in 1994. How energy secure were we then? And that, I guess, also includes the fact that a lot of people were excluded from basic services.
No, but in 1994, we had achieved energy security as a nation to the extent that we had overcapacity. So hence some of the plans were even put into what I would loosely term care and maintenance. And then by 1998, thereabout, I think that's when the talk of liberalization of the electricity market as well as potential privatization of Eskom, I think, was mooted. There's the energy white paper that is, many times referred to. And by 2001, already there was talk that this country, by the year 2020, will most probably have an energy demand in excess of 60 gigawatt or 60,000 megawatts. And come to 2024, the energy demand has dropped to below 25,000 megawatt. 8,000 megawatts have migrated of the demand that ordinarily would have been met by the monopoly. Eskom has migrated off grid, and there's a whole lot of factors that were influenced by the policy decisions of the ANC government to date. So if you now want to look to the next 20 years, or even if you talk about Agenda 2063, there isn't a clarity of thought amongst all the political parties as to what sort of an energy landscape will this economy be predicated on, and that energy landscape, what will be the size thereof, because we are most certainly nowhere near 40 gigawatt, whereas by 1998 already we had over 44 gigawatt or 44,000 megawatts of nameplate capacity. Today, the energy availability factor is then at an all-time low, and that in turn means that we're not going to see investment in grid-related type of electricity, but we've spoken about this previously on this very show. And maybe if the viewers want to know what's going to happen, they need to watch Business Day TV. Because we spoke about that the electricity market has fundamentally changed. All the political parties that are going to be in Parliament, I can assure you now, they don't fully appreciate that paradigm shift as far as the electricity market is concerned specifically, and that the future is going to be off-grid. So anyone who uses below 60 amps or 7,600 watts or 7.6 kilowatt, that is a normal home, will most probably seek alternative solutions purely because of the energy policies that have priced Eskom out of the market. The question then becomes, on reindustrialization of this economy, and if we are to invest a minimum of 8% of the GDP in economic infrastructure in order to reindustrialize and create jobs, what sort of, we have already priced ourselves out of the competitiveness scales as an economy. So that in turn means that it's therefore going to be almost near impossible to be able to grow the economy by 5% and above in the short to medium term, because of energy is fundamental. In fact, if you want to know where the economy of any country, what it will do in terms of growth, GDP growth, and what jobs it will create, you got to look at two indicators. That is energy security, and the capital markets. Those are the two fundamentals that, from a macroeconomic policy planning perspective, you have to watch those like a hawk, and you have to have a degree of control and a handle and understand the relation to all other, the multiplier effect or even the knock-on effect they will have if we are energy insecure, and also you don't have access to the capital markets, which is where unfortunately we are as a country. So I think political parties, if I look at it, they have not appreciated the fact that the liberalization of the electricity market has brought about inadvertent privatization. As I say, 8,000 megawatts of demand that previously was met by Eskom, that demand has gone off grid. And I see that pace continuing because of the exorbitant and I dare say extortionist electricity tariffs. And with that privatization and with the policy whereby previously you couldn't have a solar installation or any alternative above 5 megawatts. Today you can go to 1,000 megawatts privately. You don't need a license. You just have to register the project with NERSA. And we are going to see more industries, particularly the heavy industries, the energy intensive users, adopting that model, because if you run an industry of any kind, 4.54 cents a kilowatt hour, which is now the current tariff, certainly means that your cost of doing business is that much higher. We are now in the studio. I think viewers will appreciate the fact that there's a lot of lighting in here. There's a lot of energy demand right now as we speak. The cost has gone up. It costs you more to broadcast, to be on air per minute than it did 5 years ago. And that in turn means that it's going to have a knock-on effect on all other sectors of the economy. Therefore, we are going to remain in this state of pedestrian economic growth with high unemployment and inequality that we cannot bring down. Poverty levels. Will the state be able to, I think, sustain the SASSA grants? I doubt very much that they will be able to do that.
I must ask you, Tshepo, what we're basically saying here is the fact that with the manifestos that are out there at this point, there hasn't been one political party that has shown appreciation for the complexities and even the forethought, because of course we're trying to look ahead here, looking specifically at energy, and that should be an area of concern for all of us.
Should be an area of concern, more so as we are now preparing ourselves for a coalition government. So that in turn will mean that the presidency will by and large become ceremonial. You will not have an executive presidency and what are sometimes referred to as an imperial presidency, as we currently have. So you effectively have a parliament that by and large is a hung parliament out of coalition. And the worrying factor is that on this very important matter of energy and electricity specifically, if you look at the manifestos of all the political parties, they have got far too many points. They are contradicting, they are self-contradictory in the various points that they make. So that in turn means that if you don't have a basic understanding, and for a country to be successful in energy, it has to be anchored on 3 pillars. And I'm surprised that none of the political parties have really looked into that. The 3 pillars are, you must have security of energy, which results from reliably dispatchable electricity at the least cost in an environmentally friendlier way. That must be the policy. But you hear the parties now speak about things called energy mix, which they don't fully understand what is the practical meaning in technical terms of a thing called an energy mix. There is no such. Effectively, we will have off-grid and on-grid solutions. On-grid, we have to generate electricity on grid below 50 South African cents. 50 cents, that must be the generation cost. That must be the benchmark in order for us to remain competitive economically and be able to reindustrialize this nation. And then off-grid already, if you look at the various solutions that are there of intermittent nature by and large, because all intermittent energy sources are not suitable on grid. This is an established technical scientific fact. They are not suitable, but off-grid, they work. That's why we are seeing 8,000 megawatts of demand having migrated from Eskom. So therefore, that's effectively where the energy landscape will be, off-grid and on-grid. But on-grid, We must generate electricity below 50 cents a kilowatt hour. That must be available on demand, which means it's base load. Whatever source of energy you use, the answer must be you are answering the question of base load. And then environmental friendliness, there are technologies today whereby, I mean, you hear people talk about decarbonization without realizing that CO2, carbon dioxide, is a gas of life. You try and take carbon dioxide out of, there will be no civilization. So the question becomes, how do we harness from various sources of CO2 and a whole host of other gases, greenhouse gases? How do we harness those for industrial use so that we can achieve a better quality of life for people? Nitrogen, for example, how are you going to have fertilizer without nitrogen? And in fact, the agricultural sector dies without CO2 and without nitrogen. Sulfur, for example, which is also a greenhouse gas when we burn the various coals in the various power plants, which you worry about. How are you going to process minerals? So if you're talking about the processing of minerals, the reindustrialization, you're going to need sulfuric acid. And how are you going to make fertilizers without sulfuric acid? How are you going to have the beverage industry that needs CO2 by and large? So what am I saying? I'm saying there has to be an appreciation that when you use terms like decarbonization, it betrays the lack of understanding by those people that say that, and more so worrying when it's the policy makers, because then the policies that they make, unfortunately, put us in a state of arrested development in perpetuity instead of really leapfrogging. And we need to leapfrog as a nation in order to reduce the high levels of unemployment, the high levels of poverty, and therefore which in turn brings in a whole host of other social ills, including crime. So energy is fundamental. I think that's really the point that I want to underscore, that energy security must be everything. And the Nationalist Party apartheid era government fully understood this, that you could not build an economy. When they made the decision to invest 16% of the GDP between the years 1963 and 1976, and it's for that reason that the apartheid era Nationalist Party government achieved full employment. We might argue that they achieved full employment for the whites, which were their constituency, they regarded so. But they achieved full employment because they invested 16% of the GDP in economic infrastructure. We need to have the same policy, we need to have the same mindset post the 29th of May if we are to ensure that as a nation we can be able to grow. And energy is fundamental to that. And electricity, it must be at the least cost and it must be base load, but also understanding that, yes, private sector now, there's nothing that inhibits private sector from playing a role, and we should be able to see, I think, new entrepreneurs, a breed of energy entrepreneurs entering the space and being able to, assisted by the capital markets, not just the banking sector, but the capital markets by and large, should be mobilized to ensure that we can see that investment come through in order to achieve a better life, a better quality of life for the people of this nation, as so conscripted in the, or prescribed in the Constitution of the Republic.
Well, that's all we have time for today, Tshepo. Thank you for shedding light on this. I think certainly more complex than the conversation we're having overall. That was independent economic and energy analyst Tshepo Kgadima.